Today I'm going to be introducing and showing you something rather rare, something that there's probably only one in existence of, at least there's only one that I've come across in existence, and it was something that my teacher had made and handed down to me. Now that is a fairly unique and one-of-a-kind Xingyi sword that we refer to or we call a daifa, and this is it here. So just a little bit of background about this. This is a sword that my teacher had made in line with instructions that he had been handed down. And it's a unique Xingyi specific sword directly within the handing down that he received this transmission from. Now, he had this made based on the instructions and the parameters that he was told. And as you can see, it's a fairly large weapon. Now, you'd want to say that it's a straight sword, and you want to say that maybe it's not a straight sword. You might want to say simply because it's got a straight blade, you might be entitled to say it's a straight sword. And if you look at the tip here, you can see from here to here, it really does resemble the top of a straight sword, except it's a very large blade. From here to here, and the tip as well, is a double-edged sword. You can see here that there is a double edge, and it comes to a tip in the middle, much like most straight swords are. However, from here down, it's actually single-edged. This side has a continuous blade on it, whereas this side here is a thickened blade that's not sharpened, a spine in essence, much like you get from in all sabers. So what you have here is a uniquely created weapon that tries to combine aspects of both the saber, its strengths, as well as the straight sword, its strengths. It doesn't have a curved edge. So in that sense, it kind of doesn't fit into the sense that a saber would, a broadsword. Those are generally curved, single edge. This is a straight edge. And that is to facilitate certain aspects of use. Now you can see the handguard is something more in line with what you'd understand as a standard type of a handguard that would usually be on a broadsword or a saber, which is rather round, broad in size and shape. It has a flat kind of disc shape, although it's not a pure disc, but it's something more in line with that. Additionally, it has an extended handle. This handle is fairly long in relation to standard handles, even fairly long in terms of this. This is more along the lines of a sword that you'd use with double hands continuously. Generally speaking, a double-handed sword in relation to the user would have the handle to be about the length in the grip, not protruding past the tip of the elbow, so it would be within the length of the forearm. It all depends on the user's size per se. You know, there have been basically, stories about Li Cunyi being the famed Xingyi Quan master in our direct lineage as well. He was constantly or referred to, given the nickname as Dan Dao Li, single saber Li, and that was because he was very good with a broadsword. That was his preferred weapon, and he actually used it in certain attacks that happened during the period that led up to the Boxer Rebellion, and including the Boxer Rebellion. We'll get into detail about Li Cunyi at a later stage. However, there are stories that he had a specific type of a broadsword or a saber made that wasn't a standard saber, that combined certain aspects of the straight sword and the broadsword, and also had a longer handle and the ability to be able to be used single-handedly and double-handedly, and that was the purpose of the longer handle. His handle might have been slightly shorter than this. It's hard to say because I have never seen a replica of the sword that Li Cunyi purportedly used, and it might, for all intents and purposes, this might be modeled upon that and handed down through our lineage in that fashion. But this handle is rather long, and as I mentioned, as we've gone into the Xingyi Jian or the Xingyi straight sword curriculum, you'll notice that all of the Xingyi sword elements can be done either with single-handed or a double-handed use, or a mix of the two, and that is basically what you're seeing here. So this is a fairly unique weapon. My teacher had it recreated a very long time ago. He had it made as I said, in line with the specifications that he was handed down. And this was made one-off, so there are no others of this sword. And he had it made back then. You can see I'm busy in the process of actually restoring it a little bit because it had, over the years, come into a bit of disrepair. It had a bit of rust forming on it here and there. The blade, you can see it's got a black tinge to it because it actually had a lot more corrosion on it, which I've managed to clean off to a large degree, although I quite like this black tinge to it because it looks kind of interesting. But I'm still in the process of cleaning up all the aspects that need cleaning, and I've got to redo some of you can see the handle here, the pegs that go through the handle to keep it on the blade itself. Some of them are gone, some of them are damaged. I've actually made some new ones, and I'm going to just restore the wood a little bit and then wrap the handle, replace the pegs, and complete the restoration to keep this thing for future generations. My teacher gave it to me because he's basically wanted to hand it down to me. So it's something fairly rare. It's something I treasure. This particular one he never sharpened. However, it's so hefty that you can understand that even without sharpening, this thing's going to take a chunk out of you. It's got a lot of mass and a lot of weight to it, and it is really, really good in terms of its geometry for both hacking, slashing, as well as piercing and thrusting techniques. And simply because of the combination of the geometry of both a straight sword and a broadsword with a reinforced spine, it's actually really good for thrusting even through reinforced targets to a degree, without the risk of it bending and warping as easily as you would with a standard Jian. But then it has the heft and the meat to it to have very powerful thrusts and chops. And again, of course, the width of the blade, etc., makes it a suitable weapon, literally for weapon battle. You can use it for defense, for blocking, etc., and it's robust. Now, I was quite impressed with this sword because when my teacher had it made, whoever made it did a really good job of it. It's a single piece. The blade is a single piece all the way. You can see the width all the way through the handle, all the way to the bottom, with the pommel has a ring on it. The pommel usually has a counterbalancing aspect. It also has aspects of hooking your fingers in it to give you different types of leverage when you're holding the sword. They would use grips like this over the end for thrusting, as well as the ability to give you types of leverage on the sword when using it, especially with double-handed grips. But you could also use this with single-handed grips and transition to double-handed grips as needed. You could use it to brace and cover and block, etc. But I was very impressed with the quality of the steel that was used and the construction. It's put through the handguard. The handguard is very solid, and the unit itself is very solid. So, you know, once I've finished restoring this, it'll be much later, and just repairing it. I'll possibly give you guys another video to take a look at. But this is a unique weapon. Now, I haven't mentioned what we call it. My teacher refers to this as a dai fa ci. Dai fa ci is actually basically sword technique names as well, but this is what he was told this particular broadsword is called. As I've mentioned, I feel very lucky to have him give it to me because it is truly one of a kind. I've never seen anybody else have it, and it's something very special within our Xingyi lineage. Now, how would you use this? You could combine, as mentioned, the methods that you learn in both broadsword and straight sword. So this is the kind of weapon that you would use once you're proficient with the short weapons of broadsword and straight sword, and then that you could apply those methods in a combined manner as to your own personality and skills with this dai fa ci.